Welcome, everybody, to another edition of WCW 1993 with no Eric Bischoff in charge as we're heading down the final road towards Starrcade 1993. As we just finished with the Clash with the last show, and sorry for the slight little bit of delay in shows this week. Basically, it got really hot here where I'm at, and I basically just was totally uninterested in sitting at my computer and booking shows when it was really nice out and sunny out. So there we go. But, where I live, thankfully, I guess, for people who like my videos, it's really, it's not going to be super warm for a long time, so there you go. Anyway, off to actual, we got our first post-Clash Saturday night. Basically, we started with highlights of the Clash, which, the announcers go over the big two main events, and then they, flow into that, which gets a 71. As we flow into the announcement, as we flow into the announcement, that tonight's going to be the main event, the British Bulldog, after what he did at the Clash, turning on Dustin Rhodes, seemingly, against Johnny B. Bad in a big special main event. This gets a 70 because I just rated Bulldog, and then they sent us to the ring for our first match of the night. As in a decent match, Shane Douglas defeated Terry Taylor in 906 by pinfall, again with the belly to belly, but it says Pittsburgh plunge because I'm really bad at changing things. This gets a 54, Taylor gets a 53, Douglas gets a 47 as he continues, his slow rise back up to the card after being part of the World Tag Title picture at the beginning of the year, but he's basically a random body to throw a steamboat. And then Douglas celebrates to get a 56. Good stuff. Yeah, actually, I like the alternate history where Douglas hangs around and maybe eventually turns heel, or maybe just stays a babyface. Who knows? I don't really have much of a character for him yet, but still working on things. Then in about a decent rank in the crowd, JW Storm and Van Hammer defeated Rip Rogers, and the Gambler in 8:14 when Van Hammer pinned Rip Rogers with a slingshot suplex. This gets a 47, Van Hammer gets a 39, JW Storm gets a 53, Gambler gets a 34, Rip Rogers gets a 41, as, the Rock Stars play air guitar to get a 37. Then we have our fourth sort of first wacky segment of the night is basically the announcers put over Marty Jannetty and Brad Armstrong have been teaming up a little bit, in house shows around the country, i.e. around the Southeast, and they've done well. And so now Marty Jannetty is trying to remake Brad Armstrong to be a little cooler. So basically, Marty Jannetty is now taking Brad Armstrong to a quote unquote cool clothing store. Probably what was that company that Zubaz? Yeah, Zubaz. And Armstrong's like, I like, I like my country, flannels and plain clothes. But Jenny's really trying to talk to him. And we see Armstrong in various loud neon colors, and finally, Armstrong says, no, come, basically says, oh shucks, I don't think this is really me. And Marty's like, okay, we'll figure out something. And then cut to that 49 solid stuff. Jenny's decently charismatic, and Brad Armstrong is Armstrong. Basically, putting them over as a new tag team because basically I booked them on the B show, and they had actually great chemistry team together. So since they're both pretty talented and decent mid-card guys, a tag team you are. Then we go to the Starrcade Control Center, where basically Eric Bischoff announces the first official match for Starrcade. It's going to be a tag title match, as I change it to a 2. As it's going to be Scorpio versus Ron Simmons after defending their tag title shot at Clash of the Champions against Vinny Vegas. Will take on Bobby Eaton and Chris Benoit with the World Tag Team titles on the line. And then after that, Eric Bischoff also says there are various rumors of what matches the Iron Horsemen are looking for, as Barry Windham has just lost the World Heavyweight Championship, the International World Heavyweight Championship, but the Hollywood Blondes were successful over Sting and Steamboat. So who knows what these men will look looking for, and we still have, Ric Flair still calling out Arn Anderson to see. This gets a 67, perfectly solid type segment, for the matches and Horsemen. Then Jesse Ventura says he has a special interview with Cactus Jack. Out comes the WCW champion, Cactus Jack, to a big pop from the crowd. Ventura basically stresses by trying to troll him. That, he's looking a little battered and beaten down after the tag match. And, can he, whoever's announced as number one contender tonight, does Cactus really think that he has a shot against him, considering the only reason he's WCW champion right now is he was able to fight his kind of match against Vader. And Cactus basically goes, Ventura, I'm still standing, bruised a little, tired as hell, and I did not welcome the sun in my eyes the next morning, but bang bang, I'm still here. It's true, I don't have large arms like you, Jesse, or chiseled chest. What I have is the fortitude and my total willingness to shorten my career to continue to hold this title. So honestly, I don't care who the WCW suits say I'm facing at Starrcade, because I know I'm willing to put myself in more danger than I am. And the only question is, will they be able to stand the heat? Bang bang. 79. Perfectly solid stuff. Then we go to the ring where Ricky Steamboat wins a squash over Joey Magden 735. It says by submission with the chicken wing, but let's be honest, with the crossbody. No, actually, I actually like this. So like not just put over. They haven't seen Steamboat use that move in a while. This gets to 62. Steamboat gets to 73. Magden gets a 31. Then Steamboat basically cuts a quick promo where he wants any of the Iron Horsemen, especially at Starrcade, and he'll prove that this dog still has new tricks, or maybe this dog still has some old tricks that still work. Because that's the chicken wing that made him the world champion. So it sure as heck can defeat somebody like Pillman, Austin, or even Wyndham. 72, solid promo. And then we go basically back from commercial. Barry Windham winning a squash over Mike Graham in 846 by pinfall to superplex. This gets a 65. Windham gets a 75. Mike Graham gets a 45. Windham gets 73, like I said. And then Windham basically cuts a quick promo, putting over it's because that he's no longer world champion, but he'll get back to the top one way or the other, and prove himself worthy of a spot in the Iron Horsemen. This gets 73, straightforward promo, put over the fact that he lost that world championship to Rhodes, but he still wants another shot at him eventually. Then we have the Flamingo end with Ric Flair. So basically, Flamingo, welcomes former, and he basically jokes his 82-time world champion Ric Flair, who was winning world titles when I was still in grade school. Basically putting over that he's old. Basically Flair strikes back, says, "Son, basically, I may be a little older, but I'm a little wiser. I can still get women younger than you in my bed while you're crying your eyes out at the bar all alone." And he points at Vegas and says, "Don't worry about that title, Vinny. That's something more Arn speed." Ooh, because Arn is a former TV champion. Sort of shoot comments that aren't supposed to be shoot comments. Then Flair continues, "Woo! I'm still the gold standard professional wrestling. Still riding expensive limousines, wear custom-made suits, and fly in their jets. Arn, brother, one more time. I'm calling you out. You say you're the leader of the Horsemen now? Prove it. Actually, prove it in that ring. At the granddaddy of them all. And if you beat me at Starrcade, I'll admit it. They're your Horsemen now, and I'll walk away. But you're not going to do that." 73, solid stuff. Flamingo and Vegas strike things down, but still puts over the storyline here. Then we have a big angle as one man gang basically comes out, says he wants a challenge. Then we see here's some, it's kind of rip-off Jaws music, and out comes Tsunami, also known as Sean Tenta, also known as Earthquake, as Tsunami makes his WCW debut. And yeah, his gimmick of a monster god, a very good gimmick, but then again, a 57. The actual match gets a 67, as about that good heat and decent wrestling, Tsunami defeated One Man Gang in 11:02 by pinfall, the Big Splash. So, power match, One Man Gang and Tsunami fight, but basically, kind of an extended squash at the end, and probably, basically, if I didn't have to kill some time, this would have only gone 8 minutes, but still good as decent, as it gets 67, as Tsunami beats One Man Gang, 11:02 by pinfall, the Big Splash. One Man Gang gets a 51, Tsunami gets a 69, and then Tsunami celebrates afterwards to a 69. Then it's main event time, brothers. As Nibal had great heat and good wrestling, the British Bulldog defeated Johnny Bad in 12:05 by pinfall running power slam. This gets a 67. Bulldog gets a 76. Bad gets a 60. So again, back and forth match. Bad, fights back against Bulldog. But Bulldog doesn't actually cheat. He's been a bastard, but he isn't cheating yet, as he just overpowers Bad, and gets him the running power slam and pins him right in the middle of the ring. And then post match, Bulldog is celebrating, about to start his promo, and so, after what I realized that clash was, then Dustin comes out, and, Dustin says, you better explain yourself, and Bulldog says, if I'm going to explain myself, I'm going to explain myself when I'm damn ready, not explain myself to a daddy's boy. And there's the punch, there's the brawl, and officials officially break it up, but it sure seems like Bulldog and Rhodes are going after each other. And this gets a 77. And then it's main event time. Shit. Well, I used Bischoff for too long. Not getting the world. Anyway, Bischoff basically says he's here to announced the results of what the WCW Championship Committee has decided. There's lots of possible contenders that could get the shot at Cactus Jack at Starrcade. It goes over, Sting, Barry Windham as a former world champion, Vader, the former world champion, and Rick Rude has been very impressive. But, there's one man who said, had ever most impressive wins and a great presence these past couple months. The one he thinks himself the master in the world, and the new number one contender for Starrcade, Sid Vicious. Out comes Sid. He's the master of the world. And at Starrcade, I will, once for all, become that. When I become WCW World Champion. And there's nothing that Cactus Jack can do about it. Aha, it's crazy laugh, because it's Sid. So yeah, there's our big main event. Sid, who has been very impressive these past couple months, taking on Cactus Jack, the world title on the line. Not exactly a work rate classic, but come on. You want to see this. You want to see this craziness. And then we finish the show, get to 71. Okay, yeah. Like I said, not our best show. Basically, the main event was not quite as good as I wanted. And actually, like Bischoff being in that long a promo probably tanked things, but you got to do it. But still solid stuff. Not the end of the world or anything. But yeah, still starting some new storylines. And you're still doing that, final push towards Starrcade. Because we've got basically this coming show in November, not this coming show, this coming weekly show in November, then the next show in December. Then we've got 3 more weeks after that to build things, which I didn't realize until I was ending booking this. So I sort of forgot I have an extra week of build, which will be a positive because otherwise we could get very last week of the last couple weeks, like last week or two, just random matches being made. But we can actually do a little bit of build. But anyway, be back in a second with the other show of the taping. All right, now time for the second show of the taping, as we start out with basically the announcers putting over the fact that Sid is the number one contender, and Cactus Jack versus Sid is the big WCW Championship match for Starrcade, which gets to 73. Then we're into the ring, where it's the WCW World Television Title match. And about that decent to the crowd, but Support Wrestling, Vinny Vegas defeats Marcus Bagwell in 7:39 by pinfall of Snake Eyes. Vegas makes number fence words. Vegas makes defense number 15 for the World TV title. Yeah, he's won a lot on Power Hour. But a big win for Vegas on Saturday night over a young talent like Marcus Bagwell. Bagwell gets a 44, Vegas gets a 55. Overall, the match gets a 57. And then post-match, Vegas celebrates to a 68. Then we have the Tsunami defeating the Gambler in 401 by pinfall with a big splash. That gets a 48. Tsunami gets a 68. Gambler gets a 34. Then we have a quick tsunami promo where it basically makes lots of weight references. Lots of tsunamis, crashing into the competition. And here's my World Championship Wrestling to face the baddest and the best and prove that I can still cause a shock wherever I am. And this is a 74, perfectly solid stuff as we're putting up Tsunami. And then we go to Regal, who has a backstage promo, says he is the greatest wrestler in all of Britain, which is why he has this championship belt, which, he can't legally call the UK championship, but he is not going to degrade himself by calling himself the United States champion. But the reality is there's no more competition. If a bunch of rapscallions think they can beat me, or a glitter-bound weirdo, I defeated him once again, and simply put, there's nobody else for me to face. 64, solid pompous promo for Regal. And then we go where Marty Jannetty and Brad Armstrong are at Virgin Records, because those still existed in 1993. Where basically it's Jenny's bringing up Poison, Def Leppard, because it's 1993, but people are still Marty Jannetty is still from the 80s. Maybe Poison, Def Leppard, he can do Guns N' Roses because they're still rock, they're not grunge. And Armstrong is bringing up Alabama, Travis Tritt, but they both can agree on Willie Nelson because Marty's Marty and Brad's Brad. So they walk out with a Willie Nelson record, and that is a 48. Then we have a squash match, where an extremely short match where Hawk defeated Joey Maggs in 3-3 by pinfall with just a big boot. She doesn't even go up to the top for a shoulder. Okay, and this gets a 53. Hawk gets a 74. Maggs gets a 36. Just a quick squash to rebuild Hawk's momentum a little bit. And then Hawk celebrates to a 61. Good stuff. Then we have in a good match, Brian Pillman defeats Mike Graham in 8:59 by pinfall with an enziguri. This is a 75. Jesus. Oh yeah, I keep on forgetting Brian Pillman is real good. As he gets an 86, Mike Graham gets a 46. And yeah, just a quick squash win for Pillman. Graham gets a little bit of offense, but Pillman gets the clean win, even though he's a heel. And then, Pillman cuts a promo, says, I just proved right there in that ring that the future of professional wrestling is here. I proved at Clash, and he can prove it again if anybody's really worried about it. But he knows nobody's going to step to him because he's a horseman, and more importantly, he's the hottest thing in professional wrestling today. Sting asks, basically Sting comes on and says, brother, you never answer me if you want to dance. And, Pillman basically says, oh, I want to dance, but I'm thinking I'm going to dance all over you. And after Starrcade, if you're willing to get in that ring with me, you have to accept that it's my time now. And the bright-eyed, sunny neon 90s are over. It's time for something a little darker to be in control. And this gets a 79. And basically, this is basically announced on the B shows. That's official. Brian Pillman versus Sting. And then we move forward where in a bout like great team, good wrestling, and build up for the big tag title match. Ron Simmons defeats Bob Eaton 9:39 pinfall spinebuster. I mean, probably actually a really got a 75, so yeah, a really good match. As Eaton gets a 71, Simmons gets a 70. And then post-match, Benoit tries to go after Simmons, but 2 Gold makes a save, and basically that's a standoff between the two teams. As this gets a 64. For a second here. So we come back from commercial. Jesse Ventura invites British Bulldog basically out to, basically go, complete himself. Basically it comes down to one simple word: disrespect. I won the world title in front of my home country, and I still love that moment. When I came back to America, WCW officials seemingly didn't care about me. They gave me a mini rematch with Vader, who's a hell of a talent and a bad man. But come on, do you really think Sting, that would happen to Sting? No, they would coddle him. They would coddle Sting, and, if he did lose to Vader, they give him immediate rematches. But after I lost, there was nothing for me to do. Now, but when I saw Corporate favorite son quickly rise up the ranks, and even after he lost U.S. title, he was immediately thrown in for a match for the world title. And, like I said, that's disrespect. I'm a former world champion. I helped bring 10,000 people to London to watch World Championship Wrestling, when most people in London even know the names of WCW until I came to this company. So yes, I want a shot at Rhodes, and if he actually is his own man instead of his daddy's son, he'll accept my challenge. 85, good promo. And then we have a squash match where basically Sid goes over the Barbarian 755 by the powerbomb. So, Barbarian fights back a little bit, but it's Sid. Sid gets an 83, Barbarian gets a 54. Of course, Sid continues to go for the beatdown, but out comes Cactus Jack to basically save. They're basically, there's a confrontation and a stare off. Sid says, points the title, says that belongs to me because he's the master and ruler of the world and he's going to cause destruction. Cactus Jack says, you may think just because he had a couple of power bombs that you can take me out. Well, ask Vader if a power bomb can take me out. Bang bang. 81. And else main event time. Gets an 84, really good. As an exceptional match, Steve Austin and Barry Windham defeated Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair in 2019 when Steve Austin pinned Ricky Steamboat after using a foreign object. Basically what happens here is Flair gets distracted by Arn, and that allows Austin to cheat to win over Ricky. This gets an 84, Windham gets a 76, Austin gets a 75, Flair gets an 89, Steamboat gets an 80, and Austin and Barry will have great chemistry teaming together, which is interesting. In the post-match, we have a 3-on-2, basically beat down until officials break things up. This gets a 73. And then Arn cuts a promo where basically, says, the myth that the Horsemen was all about Ric Flair and him keeping the world title, well, that has a date when that myth will expire, and it's Starrcade. Because I've talked about the Popkins before, but truly, with me, Austin, Windham, Pillman, the 4 Horsemen of Popkins are truly here, and at Starrcade, we will ride. So Flair, as he sort of looks down on me, as he tries to get up and kick him again, you want to try me? You want to think that you can prove I'm a fraud? Well, I accept your challenge, brother. And after Starrcade, well, maybe you'll have to spend a little more time at home. 73, solid stuff. And overall, we get an 81. So good stuff. And then we go to the, we'll just see if there's any news, and then it's off to the next show. Let's see here. Just waiting as it goes through. Loading, loading, loading. Any interesting mail? Let's see here. Marks minus 2 golds. Okay. Okay. That's not nice. Wait, was that Dustin or Dusty? That was Dustin. Jeez. Ouch. Did the Rockers like pull a rib on you when you were in WWF or something? That's not nice. Anyway, so again, for our pre-booking, which I'll add in the other match here. One more time. Arn versus Rick. And if we got our current storylines, we've got well, don't look at that. We've got don't look at that either. We got Mid-Card Battling, so the tag title feud, which is 72. We got Words and Bulldog at 73. We've got what's called the tag title storyline, which is now just the Horseman storylines at 77. Again, don't look at that. Well, you guys will see it in a little bit, but slightly lower. Pillman Sings at 73, and Cactus Jack and Sid is at 79. So good stuff. But I'll be back in just a second with the next set of tapings before the pay-per-view. So I'll be back with you in just a moment. All right, time for another Saturday night as we're doing the final run to Starrcade, the final 3 shows. So, what'll happen for this video, which is we'll run a little bit longer than normal, is we will go ahead and do the final, show, everything to Starrcade. And then Starrcade and the end of the year stuff will be the next video after that. I think, probably. Anyway, let's go on to the show. We're basically start with the big main event today as Vader returns to the ring, team up with U.S. champion Steven Regal to take on Johnny B. Bad and Road Warrior Hawk. Gets to 64. Then we move forward in ring as in a decent match where Steamboat defeats Bill Oren in 724 by submission of the Chicken Wing. Steamboat gets a 76. Oren gets a 46. Perfectly solid quasi squash match. And then Steamboat does another promo where he calls out the Horseman again, and he just proved, he can still go in the ring and make people submit. So, Austin, Wyndham, if you think you're so great and the future is about you, then come face a supposed man out of time like me. 73. Then we have a squash match worried about the destruction of the crowd, but Spar Wrestling, the Powers of Pain, win another squash, defeating the Gambler and Rogers in 543 when Lord pinned Brett Rogers with a running power slam. This gets a 47, Rogers gets a 41, Gambler gets a 35, Warlord gets a 55, and Barbarian gets a 56. Then Powers of Pain Celebrating gets a 46. Then we have another fun, goofy video where Armstrong and Jannetty are together once again, and this time they're visiting Armstrong's hometown, which isn't actually his hometown probably, but it's a small southern town we can, tape in. Basically, we start with some older, older people sort of harassing Jenny for being a, long-haired hippie. Armstrong chases him off. Says he's cool. And my daddy, so it's going, it's fine. And they face off. Then later on, we have Armstrong at some sort of a restaurant, some down-home restaurant, and he introduces them to a, buxom Southern beauty who's working as a waitress, and the waitress is all flirty and is acting sitting down next to Jenny, asking if you're a rock star, and Jenny sort of turns to the camera and says, I might learn to love the South, with the goofy grin on his face. And this gets a 53, solid stuff. Then we have Starrcade Control Center, which again focuses on the various matches for the pay-per-view. Then about a great heat, good heat in DC Wrestling. Sting wins a squash over Robbie V in 822 by submission with a Scorpion Deathlock. This gets a 75 because Robbie V is pretty good at a 41, but Sting is awesome, so it gets an 84. And then Sting celebrates to get in 68, which just a quick post-match celebration, 1 minute, and there you go. Then moving forward, we have Scorpio and Simmons backstage, basically doing a typical babyface promo, says they're going to raise the roof at Starrcade and win the WCW World Tag titles. Benoit and Ian are both talented men, and they've wrestled all over the world. Ian's been a former tag team champion with lots of partners. We're going to prove tonight that we're at Starrcade, we're a well-oiled machine. and that we're what tag team wrestling in the 90s will look like. 65, good stuff. And then we have in a squash match, and he about that good heat and decent wrestling. Rick Rude defeated Iceman King Parsons in 759 pinfall with a Rude Awakening. Okay, yeah, that's fine. This gets a 70, like Rude gets 77. Parsons gets a 40, just, Parsons gets a little bit of offense, but basically it's all Rude as he wins another squash. And he seems frustrated as he continues the beatdown, but out of nowhere, Tsunami makes his, runs in and, basically chases Rude off. He sort of, Tsunami yells at him as he, helps Parsons up, and Rude just is very upset, because he didn't get a chance to beat down Parsons, or because a big man like Tsunami ran him off, but who knows, we'll just have to figure that out. And this gets a 69. Nice. Then we have a Flamingo in with Sid as he comes down to the ring. Flamingo announces him as the next WCW champion. Sid says, "That's right, as the master and ruler of the world. Ha ha ha. I will destroy Cactus Jack. And as 1994 begins, it will be the year of viciousness." Solid stuff. Basically, he says, Vegas, he's the ultimate big man in professional wrestling. Vegas sort of super whoa, whoa, whoa. We got respect for you, but I'm right here with the title belt. And Sid says, I could take that belt to you in 5 seconds if I wanted. And then Flamingo steps in and says, look, we're all friends here. Don't freak out. Sid, you're cool. Vegas, we're cool. And look, my dad knows some people, so if you got any problems, I can help you out. But, we're together. Vinny wants you to win the world title off that fat weirdo Cactus Jack, and so do I. Sid says, I don't care if you want me to win the world title. I will win the world title. 73, good stuff. And quick change for Scotty Flamingo as his spoiler rotten gimmick has a rating of adequate, unfortunately. Then we have a quick Cactus Jack video. Hey, he's cool. He used to be lost in Cleveland. He's won lots of matches. He's a weird world champion, isn't he? But he's a hard fighting man, so that's why you like him. 66, solid stuff. Then about good heat and decent wrestling, Scott Hall, nope. Dustin Rhodes, what was I even thinking? Dustin Rhodes defeated One Man Gang in 9:59 of a pinfall British Bulldog. This gets 75, so Rhodes gets 72. One Man Gang gets a 54. And then post match we have Rhodes responding to Bulldog. He says, I fought for everything in my life. I wasn't handed anything. I got a foot in the door, but I had to prove my wrestling skill if I was going to hang around. After all, there's lots of sons of wrestlers who can't quite hang. Ooh, shoot comment. I'm proud to be the International World Champion, but Bulldog, you feel that disrespected? Then at Starrcade, you'll prove it's real disrespect when the natural pins your ass right in the middle of the ring. 74, solid stuff. And yeah, that officially announces that match for Starrcade. Dustin Rhodes versus the newly heel turned British Bulldog. And yeah, for the International World title. There we go, good stuff. And then we have a big Iron Horseman promo with Ventura as basically all 4 men come out. But Barry Windham sort of hangs out, says basically, he'll figure out what he wants soon enough. But basically Sting, but then Pillman shows says, in sort of like crazy raspy voice, Sting, you have your ass kicked by the Horseman so many times, it's got to be permanently bruised. And Starrcade, it'll happen one more time. Haha. Then also basically accepts Steam's challenge and says, son, it's not 1979 anymore, and Chicken Wing won't cut it. And then basically, you have another, basically not quite a final Arn promo. Basically, Arn saying, he's the ultimate enforcer in World Championship Wrestling. He always has been, and I was leader of the Iron Horsemen. No, cut that. I'm not a leader. We're all part of the Horsemen. We're all equals here. That's why Pillman is going to take care of Sting, why Austin is going to take care of Steamboat, and why I'm going to take care of Flair. And Flair, I remind you something. We treated you like family, me and Ole. But you took advantage of us to lead to glory, and I had to deal with being your second banana for so many years. Well, I'm nobody's second banana anymore, and at Starrcade, it's going to be the end of the Ric Flair era, at the beginning of the True Horseman era. This gets an 81, and we'll do the Ultimate Enforcer, which is unfortunately gets a 4, so not the end of the world still. And then we have our big main event, which gets a 74 as an about that great heat and good wrestling Big Fan Vader and WCW US champion Steven Regal beats Johnny B. Bad and Road Warrior Hawk in 1345 when Regal pinned Johnny B. Bad with a handful of ties, but let's be honest, he hit him with the brass knucks. So this gets a 74, Hawk gets a 73, Bad gets a 63, Regal gets a 63, Vader gets an 86 because he's awesome. Yeah. Bad and Hawk showed excellent chemistry teaming together. That's a very interesting. That's like a very, very, very interesting. Anyway, so basically, what happens is, of course, we have basically Vader and Hawk who sort of squared up, are squared off and fighting again. Sort of pushing each other, then brawling, and Regal is really going to take care of Bad when the crowd pops big time, as all of a sudden, running into the ring, is Sergeant Slaughter uh, chasing off Regal and helping Bad up and then standing tall. This gets a 54 because I forgot to actually rate somebody doing stuff, which is my dumb ass. And yeah, Sergeant Slaughter's arm famous forms can get an ensuring of adequate, small boost to start quality, and extremely remarkable. And then we have basically Shivani running into the ring to interview him, and gets from which gets a 69, which nice, not the greatest thing, but honestly, I had to sort of do this because this is the big show ending thing. He was watching WCW week by week, and he was disgusted on how Regal was acting, proving treating such a flaunted title like United States title, especially a title that's about America, like nothing more than a prop. So now he's here, puke, so stand at attention, because I'm WCW World Champion, to take you out and win back the United States title for every single American. There we go, 69, nice. And we finish the show, and 76. So, good stuff. Not quite the greatest show, which, honestly, if I didn't screw up the Slaughter incoming, and probably would have rated a little better, so might have been able to get high 70s, but still, good stuff. We're really building this. Just the end stuff was a little bit of a letdown, but still, Sergeant Slaughter, he's in WCW. And again, just as a quick, out of show thing, Slaughter was actually being pushed pretty big by WWF in this game. He was actually the IC champ, which is weird because he was basically quasi-retired at this point. But what the hell? If WWF is using him in game, I can use him in game. And obviously, if he's coming in, Regal is the obvious feud. But anyway, but yeah, other stuff, we had sort of Tsunami making the save for Rude, or making the save for Iceman King Parsons and Brawl with Rude, and Rhodes basically accepting Bulldog's challenge, big Iron Horsemen promo, and yeah, good stuff. So be back in just a second with the second show of the taping. Alright, now time for the second show of the taping for week 3 of December 1903, as we continue on the road to Starrcade, as we start off with basically a big announcement of the huge main event of Austin, Pillman, and Arn Anderson versus Flair, Sting, and Steamboat tonight, as he also put over that the official announcement has been made. It's also going to be Ricky Steamboat versus Steve Austin at Starrcade. Announcers also put over later in the show that a match has been signed between Road Warrior Hawk and Big Van Vader. And they pushed this as an international dream match. For obvious reasons, for those of us who know New Japan of the early 90s and late 80s. Then we move forward. This site gets a 73. Then we go to the ring, where in a decent match, World Champion Cactus Jack opens the show by defeating Robbie V in 7:14 by pinfall with a pulling pile driver. I can imagine he would hit the one DDT anyway, but this gets a 66. Robbie V gets a 39. Cactus Jack gets a 74. And then Cactus Jack gets a promo where he says, Robbie V is a talented athlete, has a bright future. He hasn't wrecked himself this close to retirement, trying so desperately to be a world champion. But that's what I've done. And that's what I'm willing to do to keep this title. So said Vicious, you think you can truly be the most vicious thing I've dealt with? Go back, watch Halloween Havoc. Watch the other fights I've been in. Then think again. Bang, bang. 70, solid promo. And then we basically, cut the backstage. Where Steven Regal gets a promo, 72. And he basically says, I don't know who this disgusting supposed... Nope, that's not the right accent. I don't know. Nope, I can't do it. Anyway, he says in an English accent, I don't know who this disgusting supposed drill sergeant is, but the championship committee has let me know that he's had success here in the colonies. So despite an enormous brief from my lawyers pushing back on the idea that this man can just show up and get a title shot, I will be forced to defend the title against his left at Starrcade. Well, it'll be disappointing for him, because I will still walk out with his championship belt. And after I win once again at Starrcade, I will push forth a new, immediate change to this title to become the United Kingdom Championship. So there we go. A big match. Steven Regal, Sergeant Slaughter, United States title on the line. And then in a decent match, Vinny Vegas defends the World Television title, defeating Shane Douglas in 7:35 by pinfall to Snake Eyes. As Vegas makes it to number 17 of his TV title, this gets a 56. Vegas gets a 54. Shane Douglas gets a 46. And then Vegas celebrating gets a 68. Then we move forward to one of our final goofy segments of this little angle we've been doing, as now Jenny Armstrong is last week being in Armstrong's hometown are now at a rock show. Basically, Armstrong says, well, the music's all right. They play the guitar pretty well, but the lyrics not really into it. But then we have like an obvious guy who's like high walks up, and Armstrong like is nice to him, is totally unaware, and Jenny just gives him a quick little head shake, and then motions him away, and the guy smiles, gives him the thumbs up, then walks away. Armstrong says he seems like a happy dude. Then he's like, you have no idea. Then we do another little things like that, and then Jenny's says, after our visit to your hometown and meeting Debbie, I thought I would need to pay you back, and then we introduce some frizzy-haired, very late 80s, early 90s girl, because again it's 1983, so in wrestling they're a couple years behind. Who basically says she wants to see what's under your cowboy hat. And then we cut the black on that, and that gets a 49. Then we have Starrcade Control Center, again go over Rookie Steamboat, and this gets a 68. Then we have an extremely short match. Sid Vicious defeats Van Hammer in 4:51 by pinfall to powerbomb. This gets a 53. And oh my god, in a 5-minute match, there is still a lack of psychology. Jesus Christ. Sid gets a 62, Van Hammer gets a 38. Unfortunately, yeah. Sid gets an 82, not a 62. Jesus. This match was still a 58. Wow, that's just no good. And basically Sid cuts another promo saying 74. Says, I'm the master and ruler of the wrestling world. And Cactus Jack, you want to talk about how tough you are? I will destroy you. And I walk out of Starrcade World Champion, and there's nothing you can do about it. Here we go, 74, solid stuff. And then we have our Rude Tsunami showdown, and basically Rude cuts a promo to start out. Says, Rude is very upset that this fat, out of shape, SOB like Tsunami has got in my way, got into my business. It's just pathetic how I've been treated in World Championship Wrestling so far, and now this Tub of Lord is going after me. Tsunami comes out of the ring, basically paces into the ring, basically puts over the fact, he's, he may look like a big man, but he's a former sumo. He's a big athlete, and he can do impressive things in that ring that you've seen before, Rude, where we were before. And Rude says, that's beside the point. You got in my business. Well, here's reality. So Tsunami says, reality says, I'm a little big boon, but this, and he sort of does a flex, is all muscle. And he basically shoulder blocks Rude to the outside. So he basically, goes to the outside. And as Rude gets up, Tsunami grabs Terry Martel and spanks her. Big pop from the crowd, and there we go. And basically, post after that, as we come back from commercial, it's officially announced that Rick Rude will face Tsunami. And again, little booking moment. Unfortunately, Rude's kind of lost in the shuffle at the moment, because we've got our top Iron Horsemen heels, we've got Sid with the world title shot, and Bulldog just turning heel. So even though he's kind of stuck in the heel pecking order at the moment, but I hope they got a fix for him after the Starrcade. But still, Rude Rude versus Tsunami is a decent big match. And then in a bout that good, heating, decent wrestling, the British Bulldog, Max Payne, and Simone Savage beat Dustin Rhodes and the Powers of Pain in 12:07 when Bulldog pinned Dustin Rhodes. This was a handful of type, but he whacked him with a chair or the title belt. This gets a 68, Warlord gets a 57, Barbarian gets a 56, Rhodes gets a 75, Savage gets a 52, Payne gets a 56, and Bulldog gets a 77. 68 overall, like I said. Okay. And then Bulldog celebrates and makes titles at Rhodes as we continue, and this gets a 71. And now it's main event time. Oh, no, it's not. I am a dumbass. But this is a really awesome match. This is a lot better than I expected. Anyway, in a good match, Chris Benoit defeated Ron Simmons in 12:28 by pinfall, a diving headbutt, following air finish from Bobby Eaton. So what actually probably happens here is Simmons hits the spine buster, but the ref is down. Eaton comes in, hits the Alabama Jam on Simmons. Simmons now rolls over. Eaton goes up. Benoit goes up top, hits the diving headbutt. And this gets a 74 because both these guys are really good. Benoit gets a 74, Simmons gets a 68. Slight psychology, but that's understandable. And then post-match, Eaton and Benoit celebrate, with their tag titles, pointing at Simmons and 2 gold. And this gets a 67. And now it's main event time. The match that gets a 74, which unfortunately not quite as good as I thought it would be. This is actually slightly disappointing. I'll double check what happened here, but in an exceptional match, the Iron Horsemen of Austin, Pillman, and Arn defeated Flair, Sting, Steamboat in 27-21. So this is just a this is the match that would be pulled up on the internet, years later as like a lost classic. And just back and forth, everybody putting over their match. Austin, techno wrestling with Steamboat, Pillman and going high flying with Sting, and just Flair and Arn brawling. Like I said, this gets 74, Arn gets an 80, Pillman gets an 88, Austin gets a 77, Steamboat gets a 79, Sting gets an 84, Flair gets an 88. So I want to see here what was actually the downfall here. Okay, inexperienced, inconsistency, low morale, poor gimmick, burned out. Okay, that sort of makes sense. And then slightly low heat. The show itself gets us a 73, which again, so if the main event had some burnout, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And probably the match was also a little long for our audience, but what can you do? Anyway, one more, the official go home show for Starrcade. Then I'll go over the full Starrcade lineup, and then that'll be that. But we'll be back in just a moment. Right, now it's time for the go home show for WCW Saturday Night, as it's the last show before Starrcade. So let's get rolling. Let's start with basically put over the huge tag match that's main eventing tonight, as it's Root and Vader teaming up one more in time to take on Tsunami and Hawk. Then we have our opening match as an decent match. Debut Storm and Van Hammer get another win as they defeat Max Payne and Simone Savage. 11:32 when Storm pins Savage. This gets a 45. Van Hammer gets a 39. Storm gets a 53, Savage gets a 51, Payne gets 62. Symbol of sort of quasi-squash win for our babyface undercard team as they play air guitar and get a 43. Then we have Barry Windham winning a squash over Iceman King Parsons, 747 by pinable superplex. This gets a 60, so again, Parsons gets a little heat when Windham eventually gets a clean win. And then, post-match, Windham is cutting a promo saying, that he's disappointed he doesn't have a match for Starrcade because people are scared of a former world champion. When Johnny B. Bad comes out and says, basically, he doesn't have anything to do for Starrcade, but he did talk to WCW officials before he walked out and says if Windham agrees, they can be on Starrcade. And Windham basically says, well, I wanted an easy night, and Bad then drops him with a punch. And this gets a 70, and we have basically a quick match to, basically, I didn't have anything to do for Windham, and Bad was basically didn't have anything to do either. So there we go. And then we move forward as we have our final basically segment for Jenny Armstrong, and they're basically, Jenny has a big party set up. Armstrong actually thanks him, and we basically get, people from, we get the old Rednecks, we get the Buxom Blonde, we get the Rock Chick, we get probably Bob Armstrong a cameo as they finally agree to team for good, and this gets a 53. Then we have in a decent match, Marcus Bagwell getting the huge upset over the one-man gang in 642 by pinfall a fast roll-up. So basically what I see happening here is one-man gang go for sort of big 747 splash. Bagwell basically rolls out of the way and then basically cradles gang for the pinfall victory. And this gets a 46. Bagwell gets a 46, gang gets a 57, probably because he wasn't happy about losing. And then Bagwell celebrates to get a 59. Then we have a big Starrcade Control Center, which basically goes over all the big matches, but I'll go over all the big matches at the end, and this gets a 60. And then a decent match, Scotty Flamingo and Vinny Vegas get a big win, taking the Powers of Pain in 10:30, when Vegas pins Warlord basically by using underhand tactics. But still, Vegas, the TV champion, and the big guy gets the win over Warlord. This gets a 46, because Vegas gets a 55, Flamingo gets a 50. Warlord gets a 56, and Barbarian gets a 56. Not too bad. And then Flamingo and Vegas celebrate their big win to get a 64. And then in Sergeant Slaughter's official return to the Mid-Atlantic area or World Championship Wrestling, he defeats Sharker Joe in 10:06 by pinfall. Just a straightforward one by Slaughter to build him up. And this gets a 51. Slaughter gets a 69. Rougeau gets 63, but nothing going as far as storylines. And then Slaughter cuts one more promo basically saying, puke, Regal, stand at attention. You don't you might try to say that you don't care about my past, but I fought all over the world, including your merry old England, and I've won championships all over as well. So, in just a little over 24 hours, you'll be stripped naked of your title. Puke. 69, solid promo. There we go. And then we have a Cactus Sid contract signing, which gets an 83. And this is, basically just putting over everything. Cactus Jack putting over his injuries, what he's doing to keep the title. Sid saying this is your last 24 hours as champion, so enjoy it. After Starrcade, he'll be master of the world. And of course, eventually everything breaks down, and Sid hits a powerbomb through the table on Cactus Jack, and then signs the contract. 83. There we go. Then we have basically a quick little video where a limo is outside of Saturday night, and Missy Hyatt tries to pierce into it, but gets chased off by some security. So who is this? Who is in this limo? Who knows? As gets a 55, it's just a short segment. And then our main event, which gets a 65, unfortunately. Basically what happened here is Hawk was off his game. Hawk's still injured. I had it as a wild brawl, but unfortunately, crowd wasn't buzzing for it, and Hawk was tiring toward the end. Still gets a 65. As about having my text team, Great Wrestling, Rude and Vader, draw Tsunami and Hawk in 15:28 following a double DQ. So just lots of fighting. Vader gets an 86. Rude gets 77. Hawk gets a 70. Tsunami gets a 69. And then post-match, everybody just continues to brawl as this gets a 73. And then the announcers do the final big hype for the pay-per-view, which means I'll do the final big hype for the pay-per-view. So again, Starrcade, main event, Cactus Jack versus Sid. For the International World title, Dustin Rhodes versus British Bulldog. Steven Rigo versus Sergeant Slaughter for the US title. Ethan Benoit for the tag titles versus Too Cold Scorpio and Simmons. Sid faces Brian Pillman. Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson one more time. Ricky Steamboat faces Steve Austin in an old versus new battle. Rick Rude versus Tsunami. Vader versus Hawk. And Barry Windham versus Johnny B. Bad. This gets a 70. And 69 overall. So, again, not our best two shows, mainly because I put some crappy matches at the end there, but, and honestly, yeah, unfortunate stuff. But we still should be okay as far as the actual show built towards the pay-per-view. So, see if there's any news / injuries / weird things going on, and then that'll be that. So, yeah, I mean, Robbie V can't sell in 1993. Yeah, that sounds about right. But yeah, anyway, just a quick final check here as storyline-wise. Wyndham Bad, which basically just showed up, is at 63. Battle of the Badasses, which is Vader, Rude, Hawk, Tsunamis, at a 69. Tag title setup is at a 74. NWA title setup is at 68. Arn, Flair, Steamboat, and Austin is at 77. Slaughter Regal is at a 61. Pillman Stings at a 73. And the World Title Storyline is at a 79. But that's it for now. So, if you enjoy this, go ahead and give it a like. Comment below on what you're liking and not enjoying, and subscribe to the channel for lots of TEW 2020 content, including this series, my MLW 2005 series, and of course my long-running WCW 2001 series, now heading along to Starrcade 2003. Not Starrcade 1983, but Starrcade 2003. But that's it for now. Talk to you later, and adios.